What if Deku had all for one? Chapter 7. Deku walked towards the train station. He was feeling better compared to yesterday. He sat in his seat and closed his eyes. He thought back a few days. All Might walked in and was visibly shaking. "What's wrong?" asked Deku. "Have you decided where you want to go yet?" asked All Might. "No, not yet. Why?" asked Deku. You've received an invitation from my old teacher, Midoriya. He fought with me against All for One. He knows about One for All and how I tried to pass it to you. He also knows about your quirk." Deku gulped. "What do you think he wants with me?" asked Deku. "Probably to test you, to see who you are and what you are about," said All Might. "He sounds like the most interesting out of the choices," said Deku. "He's an amazing teacher. He made me the man I am today. However, he didn't do that gently. He beat it into me," said All Might. Deku's eyes went wide. "Take care," said All Might. All Might stood up and walked away. Deku was still shocked. Back on the train, it had arrived at the next station and people were getting off. "Midoriya, what are you doing here?" asked Kirishima. "Kirishima?" asked Deku. "Is he going to Gran Torino's too?" said Deku internally. The train sped off and Kirishima sat across from Deku. Eventually came to a stop and they both got off. They turned at the same corner. "He's definitely going to Gran Torino's," said Deku internally. They finally arrived before the large but run-down house. "I guess we are here," said Deku. "I guess so," said Kirishima. They knocked at the same time, but no one came to open the door. "Do we just go in?" said Kirishima. "I guess so," said Deku. They walked slowly in, only to see a body. Deku and Kirishima screamed. Suddenly the body got up. "I'm alive," said Gran Torino. The boys calmed down. "Welcome, Kirishima and Midoriya. I've heard lots about both of you," said Gran Torino. Gran Torino's eyes lingered on Deku, like he wasn't sure if the kid was safe or not. The boys bowed. "Thank you for having us," they both said. "Midoriya, sit down over there. I'm going to test the successor first," said Gran Torino. Kirishima's jaw dropped. "You know?" Kirishima asked. "I was friends with Nana Shimura, All Might's master, so yes, I know," said Gran Torino. Kirishima relaxed, then realized Deku was in the room. Midoriya, don't listen to any of that," said Kirishima. "Do chill. I know about One for All," said Deku. Kirishima's jaw dropped. This secret he was burdened with appeared to be known by everyone. "So, successor, show me what you're made of," said Gran Torino. Gran Torino shot at Kirishima too fast for him to harden. He crashed into Kirishima's gut. "Your reaction speed sucks. Now, show me your quirks," said Gran Torino. Kirishima stood up, activating his hardening and One for All. His skin hardened instantly, and red sparks flashed around his body. Deku's jaw dropped. This was awesome to see. "Interesting. It appears because you've already had a physical type work, you can control it well. Try and hit me," said Gran Torino. Kirishima seemed reluctant. "Do it," said Gran Torino. Shrugging, Kirishima pulled back and launched a 5% hardened smash. It hit nothing but air. Gran Torino shot around and kicked Kirishima in the back. Gran Torino continued to beat on Kirishima until he fell. "Consider me impressed. You are very durable," said Gran Torino. Gran Torino turned to Deku. "Your turn," said Gran Torino. Deku stood up, standing in front of Gran Torino. "I've heard about you and seen you in action. Kirishima, listen up. Your friend here has the same power as the man who put that hole in All Might's stomach." Kirishima looked up at Deku confused. Deku simply lowered his head. "Toshi says you are a true hero, and that you can use his power as a last resort. Well, I don't believe him, and I don't trust you," said Gran Torino. Gran Torino lunged at Deku, kicking him in the stomach. He then bounced off and flew into Deku's back, forcing him down. "Pathetic, and I thought you would be a threat," said Gran Torino. Deku got up, activating his sludge arms. Deku opened some portals as well. Gran Torino took off and Deku threw a punch. Narrowly dodging it, Gran Torino flew past Deku's fist and bounced into a wall. Deku had punched through a portal, so his fists came out at unpredictable angles. "I've got way more tricks than that," said Deku. Gran Torino jetted towards Deku. The week of training was going well, until Gran Torino finally deemed them ready for field activities. They headed off to the city on the bullet train. "Have you heard from Ida at all?" said Kirishima. "No, he won't answer me. Ever since his brother was attacked, he's been ignoring everyone. I hope he's okay," said Deku. At that moment the entire train shook as the wall was torn out. A massive Nomu clawed its way into the train. Immediately jumping into action, Deku used a portal to save the people close to the Nomu, and Gran Torino kicked the Nomu out of the train. He chased after it. In the distance there was an explosion, and this caught the boys' attention. "Let's go," said Deku. "Yes," said Kirishima. Deku opened a portal, and they appeared just down the street of the explosion. There was a massive black Nomu fighting some heroes. "Who are you lot?" said Manuel. "From UA," said Deku. "Unless you are a pro, clear out." "Damn it, where is Ida?" said Manuel. "Kirishima, you think what I'm thinking," said Deku. "Yep, he's gone off to Stain," said Kirishima. At that moment there was a scream from a family trapped in the flaming building. "Damn it, I can get them out," said Deku. Deku ran towards the heroes, then yelled over his shoulder. "Search the back streets, he'll be far off from the fight," said Deku. Kirishima nodded and activated One for All. Deku ran over to the heroes. "I thought I told you to clear out," said Manuel. "I can save them," said Deku. Deku opened a portal and jumped through. Inside the building, Deku appeared and was immediately choked by the fumes. He coughed, but saw the family in the corner. They were barely conscious from the fumes. He ran over and opened a portal underneath them. They fell through onto the street. Deku jumped back into the street, and Manuel looked at him impressed. "Okay, good work." "We have people on the third and second floors. Can you get them out?" said Manuel. Deku nodded and teleported away. A few moments later, Deku reappeared with a bunch of people. Deku fell to his knees, coughing up from the fumes. Thankfully, his healing prevented any damage. "I've got to check the other floors," said Deku. "There isn't anyone else," said Manuel. Deku didn't listen and teleported inside. He frantically searched every room in every building, but it looked like Manuel was right. Then he heard it, a faint moan and a whine from behind him. He spun around to see a woman barely conscious cradling her child in a bathtub. Deku grabbed hold of them, teleporting them out of there. Manuel looked at him even more impressed. "Great work. Now, go get them. Go get them medical help," said Manuel. "Don't worry, I have it covered," said Deku. "How? Your quirk is to teleport," said Manuel. Deku took a deep breath and closed his eyes. When he opened them, his eyes were glowing a soft green. He placed his hand on the chest of the woman and her child, and his hands glowed the same green light. "It's you, the kid who can steal powers," said Manuel. Deku took his hands off them, and he began to breathe normally again. "What did you do?" asked Manuel. Deku went over to the next pair of civilians and did the same to them. "I recently got a quirk called Energy Transfer. The previous user used it to steal energy from people and go on a rampage. But it could also be used to give energy. If I combine it with my super regeneration, I have the power to heal people." Manuel's eyes went wide. This was such an amazing thing to hear. Deku finished healing the civilians and turned to Manuel. "Can you take care of them? I need to go find Ida and Kirishima." Manuel nodded. At that exact moment, Deku's phone vibrated. It was a message from Kirishima, but it was only a location. Deku gulped. He knew exactly what this meant. They had found the hero killer. Deku read the coordinates and opened a portal. As he stepped through, he waved goodbye to the civilians. Deku appeared in the alley to see Stain slice Kirishima with his sword. The sword crashed into Kirishima's shoulder, but didn't cut him. The blade bounced off. Deku stepped out of the portal and stood next to Kirishima. Took you long enough," said Kirishima. "Sorry, where is Ida?" Kirishima pointed behind Stain. Deku saw Ida lying on the ground, trying desperately to move. "Good, he's alive," said Deku. Deku opened a portal underneath Ida and teleported behind them. Then Deku formed two sludge arms. "Ready?" asked Deku. "Let's go," said Kirishima. The two of them shot at Stain. Kirishima was like a rocket-powered bulldozer. He smashed into Stain's stomach, sending him into the air. Deku opened a portal in front of him and appeared above the airborne Stain. Mid-air, Deku forced all of his sludge into one arm and smashed it into Stain. This sent him crashing down to the ground. Stain got to his feet, pulling out a handful of knives. Before they could react, he held a knife at each of them. One of them stabbed deep into Deku's shoulder, knocking him off balance and to the floor. The one thrown at Kirishima missed. "Good. He must be on the ropes. He's lost his accuracy." Then there was a gasp from behind them. They turned to see that Stain hadn't missed. He just wasn't aiming at Kirishima. The knife was stuck deep into Ida's thigh. Blood began pouring out of the open wound. Deku pulled the knife from her shoulder, allowing it to heal, then ran over to Ida. "Kirishima, hold him off for a minute," said Deku. Kirishima nodded and leapt back into the battle. Ida, can you hear me? I need to remove the knife. This could cause you to bleed out, but I can heal you. What should I do? Asked Deku. Do it, Midoriya. I can handle it. Deku nodded and closed his eyes. They flashed green again as Deku got ready. His hand pulsed with green light. Here goes, said Deku. Deku grabbed hold of the knife. As he did, Ida gasped with pain. Deku gulped. Quickly, Deku pulled out the blade. Ida howled in pain. Instantly, Deku pressed his hand into the wound, feeling it slowly close. Deku looked over Ida and saw him slowly closing his eyes. Hey, stay with me, said Deku. Ida's eyes opened again. Sorry, I'm just so tired, said Ida. That'll be the blood loss. Don't worry, you're almost healed, said Deku. A few minutes later, the wound was closed and Deku let out a sigh of relief. Deku turned to see Stain pinning Kirishima to the ground with his scarf wrapped around his throat. He's durable, but he needs to breathe to use his quirk. In a few more moments, he'll be vulnerable. Stain held his blade just above Kirishima's head. Deku reacted instinctively. Creating two massive sludge hands, he dug himself into the walls of either side, then pulled himself forward like a slingshot. Stain turned to see Deku hurtling towards him. Acting quickly, Stain thrust out his blade. If Deku didn't move, he would kebab himself. Deku thought quickly and opened a portal in front of him. He flew through it and smashed into Stain's back, knocking him off balance, off Kirishima. Stain spun around, slashing at Deku, but Deku sank into the ground. What the? Said everyone. My other new power, Shadows. It allows me to sink into my own shadow to evade harm, but also allows me to do something else, said Deku. Deku's shadow walked over to Stain's and grabbed hold of it. Kirishima, get him now, said Deku. Stain laughed as Kirishima got to his feet. He tried to attack him, but couldn't. What the? Said Stain. I can grab your body and restrain you in this form, and there is nothing you can do about it, said Deku. Stain looked down to see that the shadow of Deku was grabbing his arms and holding them back. Kirishima clicked his knuckles, activating his quirks. Kirishima swung at Stain, intent on knocking him out with one punch, but Stain struggled and managed to wrestle one arm free. Stain pulled out a knife and stabbed at Kirishima. The blade glanced off him, and his fist collided with the villain. He was sent flying to the nearby wall. Deku rose out of the floor. Is he down? I think so, said Kirishima. Kirishima took a deep breath and deactivated his quirk. The moment he did so, a knife flew out of the dust, stabbing into his gut. Kirishima fell to the ground, coughing up blood. Deku leapt towards Kirishima, but another knife flew out, catching Deku in the neck. Deku fell down to the ground, desperately trying to reach the knife. Got to take it out. Need to heal, said Deku. Everything faded. The darkness closed in around Deku. He managed to reach up and grab the handle of the blade, but he was too weak to pull it out. His hands started to become limp, but suddenly he felt someone else grab the blade. It was torn out and the wound closed. Deku's eyes snapped open. He saw Ida standing over him with a bloody knife in his hand. Ida gave Deku a hand up. You good? Said Ida. Deku held his neck. Yeah, said Deku. Deku looked down at Kirishima. He needed help fast. We need to take him out now, said Deku. Out of the cloud of dust stepped Stain. He was heavily beaten with blood pouring down his face. With a shaky hand, Stain gripped his sword. Deku created two sludge arms and Ida charged his engines. Come on, heroes, said Stain. They lunged at each other. Ida landed a solid kick in Stain's gut, sending him back. Deku then hit him with a sludge punch to the face. This knocked the hero killer onto his back, but he was quick to do a backwards roll onto his feet. He dodged Deku's next attack, kicking him into a wall. Stain then turned his attention to Ida. Recipro burst! yelled Ida. Ida accelerated and kicked Stain in the shoulder. It was too fast for him to counter. The blade was flung from his arm. Ida then span around, kicking the hero killer in the jaw. This sent him spiralling away. At that moment, Deku got back up and jumped back into the fight. Using his sludge, he covered the villain and grabbed him. Ida then bounced off the wall, kicking Stain in the head. Stain's body became limp and Deku released him. They fell to the ground, panting. I need to heal Kirishima. Deku crawled over to Kirishima, who was barely conscious. He removed the blade and began to heal him, but it stopped halfway. Deku began to panic. It's not working. Damn it, why is it not working? Yelled Deku. You're too tired, said Ida. I know how to fix that, said Deku. Deku held out his hand towards Stain and began to draw energy from him. Deku immediately began to feel stronger. He took a deep breath in, held out his hand towards Kirishima again. He felt the energy flow out of him and into Kirishima. The wound slowly began to heal. Deku fell to the floor as Kirishima woke up. "What happened?" asked Kirishima. "We won," said Deku. They tied up Stain, and a few moments later the heroes came running. The next day the kids awoke in hospital. Ida went home with his family. Thanks to Deku's healing, none of them were seriously injured. After a few hours, All Might walked in and took Deku aside. "Young Midoro, I was told you how you saved those civilians," said All Might. All Might hugged him. "I'm very proud of you. You acted without hesitation like a true hero," said All Might. Deku smiled up at All Might. "However, there is one thing I don't understand. How were you able to heal people?" said All Might. "I used energy transfer with super regeneration together. It allowed me to share the healing powers, but a bit weaker, so it takes longer," said Deku. All Might nodded. "Oh my god," said Deku. All Might looked at him in confusion. "I could try it on you." "What if it healed you?" said Deku. "I don't know. Even Recovery Girl's healing couldn't fix me," said All Might. "Please, I have to try," said Deku. "Fine," said All Might. All Might lifted his shirt, exposing his scar. Deku closed his eyes and then snapped them open again. The piercing yet soft green glow was back. Deku held out his hands over the wound and it began to heal. Very, very slowly, but there was a change. All Might's stomach turned as it regrow and changed shape. He felt like he might throw up. After a little while, Deku stopped. He was out of energy. Deku looked up at the wound and could see that it shrunk. "I told you I could help," said Deku. All Might ruffled his hair. "Yeah, I think it's 20% smaller. You wouldn't mind doing that again in the future, would you?" said All Might. "It would be an honor to help you, All Might," said Deku. All Might helped Deku up and put him back into bed. He then went downstairs and got him a pack of sausage rolls for when he wakes up. All Might walked over to Kirishima, putting his hand on his shoulder. "You did well," said All Might. "Not really. In the end I needed saving," said Kirishima. "There is no shame in that," said All Might. "Are you sure you made the right choice?" said Kirishima. "I am. Without you, young Ida would have been killed," said All Might. Kirishima smiled up at All Might. "Thanks, All Might," said Kirishima. All Might stood up to leave, but Kirishima stopped him. "Wait, there is something I need to know." All Might turned to him confused. "What's up?" said All Might. "Gran Torino said something odd. He said that Midori had the same power as the guy who injured you," said Kirishima. All Might sighed and sat back down. "It's time I told you everything." Kirishima looked up at All Might, wondering what he was on about. "Long ago, there was two brothers. One had the power to steal the other people's quirks, just like Midoriya. The younger brother was quirkless and weak. To torment his brother, the older gave him one. He gave him a quirk, the power to stockpile energy over time. The older brother did this to give his brother false hope. The dream that one day he could defeat him, but it was impossible. However, the younger brother wasn't quirkless. He had a secret quirk that even he knew nothing about. The power to transfer your power to another. It fused with the power stockpile quirk and created One for All. It was passed down through years until it passed on to me. I used it to defeat the villain, All for One, the elder brother. I thought I killed him, but he escaped. Then, one day, I found Midoriya. He'd just been attacked by a villain. His quirk had activated for the first time. He stole the villain's quirk accidentally. He didn't have any control over what he was doing." Kirishima looked across at Deku, who was still sleeping. "Jesus, I didn't know he went through all that," said Kirishima. "It took a lot for him to get over what happened. He still has a lot of unresolved and uneasy feelings about his power, and there is something you should still know." All Might took a deep breath. "I tried to give One for All to Midoriya." Kirishima was shocked. He accepted the power, but something to do with our different quirks caused some sort of feedback. One for All refused to be passed on. "Then why choose me?" said Kirishima. "Midoriya recommended you. He said you had a heroic heart, and that you would be a great hero," said All Might. Kirishima smiled towards Deku. "Thanks, man," said Kirishima. All Might smiled at Kirishima and Deku, who was very glad to be the person to train these two heroes. All Might stood up and walked out as Kirishima rolled over to go to sleep. He had a lot to think about, especially the fact that one day he might have to fight that villain. Kirishima fell asleep. A few hours later, Deku woke up. He saw the box of sausage rolls and began to eat. He was so very tired. Deku finished his food and looked down at his hands. My friends almost died. I can't stay weak, said Deku. Even though Deku had taken quirks after quirk, he still felt weak, powerless. I need to be stronger so I can protect people. End of chapter 7.